Dana White claims fake news is to blame for his rift, or problems, you could say, with Khamzat Chimaev. Also, this Saturday night, we had a week off, right? But this Saturday night, we got UFC Vegas 74, Kai France versus Amir Albazi. We're going to get into all these topics and many more going down right now in the UFC. Stay tuned.
Broadcasting live from an undisclosed location. This is The Community MMA with your host, Chris Cross.
A-team in the house. A-team in the house. Boom! It's over! Boom! It's over! It's over! It's over! It's over! It's over! Boom! Khamzat Chimaev! Boom! Khamzat Chimaev! Boom! 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 Boom!
What up, what up? This your boy Chris Cross. Welcome to the Community MMA. And we're outside today in the nature, hanging out. We got flies everywhere. The dogs are outside. They're probably going to bark a few times. But it's all good. We're going to get through the show, baby. Stay with us. First up, Dana White is claiming fake news is to blame for his rift with Khamzat. I mean, could that be? I mean, Khamzat unfollowed him and the matchmakers on places like Twitter and others. But Dana White, is kind of saying it's all fake news. It's all fake news. This is the media. I could literally do this every day, he says, with almost every story that's written. Everything these people write is total and absolute nonsense. And I believe that on some level. I mean, I believe some of this, a lot of what we read is fake. You're trying to generate topics. You're trying to create storylines. You're trying to get people's attention, right? I mean, you're trying to say and do anything you can to get people to notice, right? Some of these fights that they claim they're coming or are going to be set up, we find out later, aren't even in the works. The UFC has to offer every fighter 3 fights. So fighters may be in the media saying they want this opponent, and that's not even what's being offered. And the UFC's trying to force their hand, and you just don't know what you see in the media if it's true or fake. You just don't know what's real and what's not. And that goes for mainstream news too, right? I mean, it is what it is. I think we all know this. It's not like a bad thing. It just, you have to try to decipher what you're reading. And in terms of the UFC, you just got to look at, okay, what fights are booked, what's actually happening. We know Khamzat doesn't have a fight booked. That's becoming a real problem for people. So that creates the narrative without anyone saying anything. There's some type of problem with Khamzat and the UFC, because at one point, they had this guy fight 10 days apart. He's always claiming that he wants to fight. So if he's not getting a fight, what's going on? And then you see the McGregor Forever documentary on Netflix, and you see, like, after he beat Cowboy Cerrone, he wanted to fight like right away. What ended up happening is everything got shut down for several months, and he finally comes back almost a year later and fights Poirier. It wasn't really, he was in the groove ready to fight after Cerrone, and they couldn't get him a fight. So if it happens to McGregor, it happens to all these guys. The UFC has a plan, and they're trying to execute it. And Dana White's trying to let us know that some of the stuff, if not all, is nonsense. But again, what isn't nonsense is Khamzat doesn't have a fight. So until he gets Khamzat a fight, you're going to continue hearing these type of discussions.
Khamzat Chimaev!
Whether it's fake news or not, it doesn't matter. It opens a narrative for there to be some type of problem between the UFC and Khamzat.
Boom!
And it's time for this guy to get a fight. We need a fight from this guy.
It's over! It's over!
And then we can say it's over. Then we got something to talk about. We got a fight to talk about. Right now, we have nothing to talk about except Dana White claiming a lot of this stuff we see is fake news. Throughout the last couple shows, we talked a lot about The upcoming cards we're going to see. UFC 289 is okay. UFC 290 is ridiculous, awesome. 291, Poirier versus Gaethje 2. That'll be a good fight, but is it the best headliner for a pay-per-view? I don't know. UFC 292 will heat up when we get there later in the summer. Aljo and Sean O'Malley. A lot of questions about O'Malley. Could he beat Aljamain Sterling, right? So these are the next 4 pay-per-view cards, and it begins with Nunes versus Aldana here in a couple weeks. But even some of the fight nights have really good fights in store. This Saturday, you got a big one in the flyweight division. Kai Kara-France versus Amir Albazi, right? And this is a big one. I mean, it's a big one. Because when you look at the flyweight division, you got Brandon Moreno's a champ, right? He's fighting Pantoja, who's number 2. Figueiredo's still there, but he's probably moving up, you would think, the bantamweight at some point. He should. Then at 3, you got Kara-France knocking on the door. And he's facing, although you can't see him in the rankings here, we got it all the way down to number 6, Alex Perez, but he's facing number 7, Amir Albazi. And if Amir can win this fight, that's a new name that's in the mix. So let's jump right into that prediction right now. In the flyweight division at UFC Vegas 74, this is your main event. Kai Kara-France comes in at 24-10, taking on Amir Albazi, who comes in at a nice 16-1. And this fight is even money for entertainment purposes only. Albazi 1 inch taller at 5'5". Both guys pretty much in the prime of their career. Albazi 29, Kara-France, he's 30. Kara-France is a 1 inch reach advantage. Both guys stand right-handed. Now, Kara-France is more active, 4.7 significant strikes per minute to 3.5 for Albazi, but Albazi has an advantage in the takedown game, landing like 2.5 takedowns over the course of 3 rounds, which equates to almost a takedown every single round. But here's the trick. Kara-France has an 87% takedown defense, so he's going to limit a lot of those takedowns. Against Brandon Moreno, he lost by TKO. But it was 58-53 in significant strikes from Moreno, very close. Kara-France even had a takedown in that fight. Before that, he beat Askarov by decision. Big win there. He gave up 2 takedowns, but dominated in significant strikes. He also beat Cody Garbrandt and Rogerio Bontorin. Albazi, 66% takedown defense. He has wins over Alessandro Costa, Francisco Figueiredo, submission. Both of those by finish. Zhalgas Zhumagulov, and Malcolm Gordon. So he's 4-0 in the UFC. And this is a tough prediction because Albazi has such a great record, the ability to land takedowns, and Kara-France has 10 losses. Again, he's 24-10. So a lot of losses for Kara-France, but he's gotten better throughout his career. He's got a lot of fights, 34 professional fights for a 30-year-old. That's incredible. So how's this fight going to go? It's going to be a pretty close fight. I think this fight goes to a decision, even though it's a 5-rounder. I mean, you could get a finish here, but you got 2 really good fighters that are likely to go to a decision. And Albazi has good enough ability to strike. He's not as good or as active as Kara-France, but he's going to land 2 to 3 takedowns if this fight goes to a decision. He's going to keep the significant strikes close enough, and I think it's going to be a very close decision. Could go either way, really. That's why it's 50-50. It's the perfect odds, if you ask me, because it's a very tough prediction. But I like Amir Albazi to squeak out a victory here. This guy has been impressive, winning 16 of his first 17 fights. He's undefeated in the UFC, and he's reaching for the stars here in this fight, but I think he gets the job done. Albazi wins by decision on significant strikes, but mainly takedowns. He'll fight through that 87% takedown defense at Kara-France to get the victory, in my opinion, to move to 17-1, flyweight division, main event at UFC Vegas 74. I guess I was feeling good and took Albazi because we're 13-4 so far this year on main events. So feeling good. We'll take a little bit of a long shot, I think, just because, Kara-France is number 3. He's really good. My concern for him, despite the takedown defense, which is going to be a factor, it gives Kara-France a window for victory if he can stop those takedowns. But I just like Albazi. 16-1, Kara-France has too many losses, but he's still number 3 in the division. So that also means he's beating a lot of people too. He's just losing some fights against really good fighters. So yeah, we'll take him to win. We'll take Albazi to move to 17-1 and jump to number 3. And now you got a big player in the flyweight division. And the title will be sorted out soon. Figueiredo's just hanging at number 1, but I don't see him fighting again. And if Albazi can win this, he might be in line immediately for a title shot. Excuse me. Pending the results of Moreno versus Pantoja. You know, if that's a close one, maybe Moreno gets a rematch. That seems to be the way things go nowadays. So if you're Albazi, you really want Moreno to win. And then he's beaten number 1 and number 2 contenders in Figueiredo and Pantoja. So at that point, you're up next. So Albazi needs to win, and he needs a win from Brandon Moreno, and then he's in the driver's seat as far as a title shot. In this next fight, you got Alex Caceres versus Daniel Pineda. I'm a big Alex Caceres fan. And, you know, the guy's won, 6 of 7, 7 of 8, something like that. I know he went on a 5-fight win streak, so probably 6 of 7, then lost 1, then won 1. And I said when he was like maybe 14-12, somewhere around there, that this guy could go on a run, forget the record. His numbers look good. And sometimes these guys come into the UFC and they struggle, and then they hit their stride, and he did. He went on a 5-fight win streak. But Daniel Pineda is really good. So don't just assume who I'm going with in this one. But if Caceres can keep winning, just because I like the guy, we got to consider him for the dude list at some point. It's just someone we like and root for. So we could probably put him at 18, 19, 20, right? Sneak him in there. But check this out. In the featherweight division at UFC Vegas 74, you got Alex Caceres coming in at 20-13. A lot of losses. Daniel Pineda comes in at 28-14. So 2 guys with a lot of losses. But the momentum favors Caceres. Will explain why. He's 3 inches taller at 5'10". Both guys in their mid-30s. Well, actually, Pineda is 37 years old, so he's getting up there. Caceres with a 5-inch reach advantage. He fights left-handed. Pineda fights right-handed. Now, Caceres lands about 4.2 significant strikes per minute to 3.3 for Pineda, but Pineda lands like a takedown every other round, so that's to his advantage. Caceres just a 64% takedown defense. And at one point, he had like a 14-13, maybe 15-13, 14-12 record, somewhere around there. And then he went on a 5-fight win streak. He ended up losing to Sadiq Youssef by decision in a very close fight. In a fight, he actually outstruck Sadiq Youssef 66-64. So it broke the 5-fight win streak, came back and beat Julian Juicy J Orosa by KO. So he's won 6 of his last 7 fights. Now, Pineda, 48% takedown defense. He has a win over Tucker Lutz in his last fight, but lost to Cub Swanson prior to that. Beat Herbert Burns, that's a big win, but lost to Robert Whiteford and Diego Brandeo. So this one's pretty simple to me. I told you a while back, Caceres will go on a run. He ended up doing so. Yeah, he had a tough fight against Sadiq Youssef. Fought well, though, and showed he's a legitimate fighter now. The 20-13 record is not even close to being the same as Pineda's 28-14. I like Alex Caceres to win this fight easy. The biggest question to me here is, will he get the finish or not? I'd like to see him do so, but one way or another, in my opinion, he wins to move to 21-13 and make it 7 wins in his last 8 fights here in the featherweight division at UFC Vegas 74. Wow, I said win easy. That's crazy. And if he wins this at 7 of his last 8, you got to really start talking about this guy. You know, and Charles Oliveira is the one to set the tone for this first, right? I forget what he was in his first 11 fights. It wasn't very good. And then he went on an 11-fight win streak. 2 first half of your career, second half in the UFC. Because these guys hit the 28, 29, 30 to 33 range. The peak, maybe even up to 35, because they have enough wins behind them to continue for a while. You know, and then maybe you go win 1, lose 1, win 1, lose 1, and then you fade out. But these guys hit their stride at a certain age, and Alex Caceres is at that age. And this is a big opportunity for him. Now, in fight 3, you just got a good old-fashioned fight. Not any big implications on rankings or nothing like that, but just a good old-fashioned fight between Jim Miller and Jared Gooden. These are always great fights when you're looking at, the lightweight division. Check this out. In the lightweight division at UFC Vegas 74, you got Jim Miller coming in at 35-17. 52 professional fights, taking on Jared Flash Gordon, who comes in at 19-6. Now, Gordon's 1 inch taller at 5'9". He's 34. Jim Miller's getting up there, 39 years old. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage over Gordon. He fights southpaw. Gordon fights right-handed. Now, Jared Gordon is very active, 5.3 significant strikes per minute to 2.9 for Jim Miller. He also lands more takedowns, 2 over the course of 3 rounds. Jim Miller, about a takedown and a half over the course of 3 rounds, which really equates to about 1 takedown every other round. Now, Jim Miller, weak takedown defense, 48%. That's something that plagued him throughout his career. He's coming off the loss to Alexander Hernandez by decision, but before then he won 3 in a row against Donald Cowboy Cerrone, Nicholas Mata, and Eric Gonzalez. Now, Flash Gordon, 62% takedown defense. Not very good either, so you expect some takedowns in this fight. He had a no contest against Bobby Green. Before that, he lost to Paddy Pimblett, but he took it to a decision and looked good in that fight, landing 3 takedowns, somehow getting the loss, even though it was just 63-60 in significant strikes. Before that, he beat Leonardo Santos by decision, dominating him 116-36 in significant strikes, and he lost to Grant Dawson, giving up 7 takedowns. So the odds favor Jared Gordon here to get the victory, but Jim Miller is always a tough out. He's ever the veteran. He is the underdog in this fight, but I'm going with the underdog here. I like Jim Miller because the guy is relentless. He's got 2 times as many wins as losses. 17 losses is a lot, but he's never an easy out. And you see he's won 3 of the last 4 fights. Well, I like him to win 4 of his last 5. He's not quite 40 yet. He's 39. So he's still got a little energy in the tank. I like Jim Miller to squeak out a decision here. He's got to defend the takedowns. That could be a problem. But Jim Miller will find a way to win to move to 36-17, in my opinion. Lightweight division. UFC Vegas 74. Boy, we're taking some chances this week. Got Jim Miller here winning this fight. Good old-fashioned fight here in the UFC. Best division, the UFC lightweight division. And no big implications. Neither of these guys is looking to be ranked and fight for a title one day. It's just a good old-fashioned UFC fight is what it is. And it's hard to go against Jim Miller. Make no mistake about it. Now, as we jump into the Q&A, you got Chaos saying, this comment section is insane. Laugh out loud. How are y'all really picking this man to beat Bobby Knuckles? It's tough. Dricus du Plessis, man. The man's resume isn't that good, and he's had scraps with all the dudes he's faced. That's why I'm picking Dricus. And Bobby Knuckles, a.k.a. Robert Whittaker, is a big step up. But Dricus just finds ways to win. That's why it's hard for me to go against him. But I could see Robert Whittaker winning this fight too, very easily. Very easily. Lario Jobert. I honestly believe Dricus will win this fight. Proudly South African. And he weighs in once again with some smiley face, cool emojis. He got the peace sign up. Yes, sir. Represent South Africa. Dricus du Plessis. Kenneth Bruner with a long one here. Says Khamzat needs a fight at 185 now. Adesanya is the only fight that makes sense. All other top 5 and middleweight are tied up. The Usman thing looks to be sketchy. Usman probably not wanting to fight at 185. Khamzat should take a fight at 170. Khamzat should not take a fight at 170 under any circumstances unless it's the belt. I think 205 makes more sense than 170 for Khamzat, and it should be an option for him very soon.
Khamzat Chimaev.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm with Bruner 99% of the time. And this is one of those. I mean, I wouldn't take a fight at 170 under any circumstances. It's just a big risk to take for what? Because when he wins, they're going to discount Usman immediately. Immediately, they're going to discount Usman. So it's a risk reward factor, and it's just not there for Khamzat. Hold the line. Angela Real. This is the fight that opens or closes the door on Dricus du Plessis. After the stuff he said about Africans not living in Africa, he can't shrivel away into obscurity. He has effectively invalidated Adesanya. Now he has to do it. Prove his words in the octagon. For sure. For sure. And it is time for, it's a big fight. This is why, you know, when we have a break like last week, we tend to sit back and look at all the fights that are coming up and really get a grasp of the schedule going forward. We got some time to peak. We don't have to worry about a fight this week, right? That just passed. And we look at all the fights coming up, and that's the biggest one. That's the biggest fight with the most implications. So people are going to weigh in on that like crazy. That's bigger than Poirier versus Gaethje. It's bigger than Nunes versus Aldana. It's bigger than Sterling versus O'Malley, even though that's for a title. That's just the way it is. That's the biggest fight coming up. Make no mistake about it. But you know what that means? We got to wrap the show up. They're rushing me out of here, man. They're rushing me out. But for now, listen, it's your boy Chris Cross. Hope you have a great day and God bless. As always, peace.